Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from Houston, Texas, USA, Mr. Chris Westfall. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Chris is a business coach. He's a writer and keynote speaker, and he's an author. And all of you know I'm very partial to authors. So he's an author of a book titled Easier, and we'll talk about it also. So Chris, before we get into author and all the other things, you're the coach, tell me a little bit about your own journey.
My own journey started in the corporate world, working for Fortune 100 giants after I got my MBA. And I went through a series of various responsibilities in my career: marketing, sales leadership, marketing leadership, working for companies all over the globe. And about 12 years ago, I found myself as a reluctant entrepreneur. Part of the changes and transition that happened during the global financial crisis, as well as sort of I'm going to say a longing, if you will, to put my hands on the wheel of my career and to guide where my career was going to go. Maybe some of the folks who are watching, listening are feeling the same way. But yeah, that was my journey. And I was a reluctant entrepreneur because I had been a corporate guy for so many years and stepped into that role and that identity. And then it was a real change for me. And again, that happened about 10, 12 years ago. And since then, I've never looked back. And as you mentioned, I've stepped into writing, business coaching, consulting, and it has been just an amazing, amazing journey. And a lot of the work that I've done has been centered around leadership communication, helping people to launch their businesses, which I've been a part of launching over 70 businesses and counting all over the world. And so helping people to bring new ideas to life, helping people to have new conversations, such as this one. So thank you again, my friend, for having me. But yeah, that's really what it's about. It's about helping people to change the conversation and change their results.
Very interesting. So when we talk about your book, Easier, why did you write a book that's called Easier when you know life isn't easy? Are you saying that life can be easier? And if so, how?
Well, follow me on this. Life is not easy, first of all. Let me say that. And I did not write this book trying to say that, oh, life is easy. But here's the thing that I discovered. In my own personal journey, I feel like I have a PhD in making things difficult for myself, making things hard, overthinking things. And anyway, what I came to discover, and it was a discovery that was made during the pandemic, because we were all in the midst of very difficult circumstances, right? We all experienced having something taken away from us, whether that's personal freedom or take it however you will, but we all experienced that sort of that sense of loss, that sort of worldwide grieving, if you will, and challenge. And that was my experience as well. But from the midst of this difficulty, what I came to realize was that even when times are hard, easier always exists. In other words, there's an easier way to show up. There is a choice that can be made. Even when your circumstances don't change, you can choose how you show up. You can choose how you react. And from this place of choice, I found a path to personal freedom, which, freedom isn't a political construct. It's a state of mind.
Very interesting.
And does this make sense? You see what I'm saying? So from this place of seeing new perspectives in my own life and in the lives of my clients and the companies that I worked with, I made some discoveries around how to make, and I'm going to say life. The book is, it's a business book and it talks about your work life, but it makes life easier because the blending between work-life balance. It's just life. Am I right?
Yeah. Very interesting. And, you also, when you talk about this book, you go about creating the story of the client and the coach. Are you the client or the coach in the story?
That's a great question. The answer is Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Right. I'm both.
I know.
And just to set it up for folks, the book is a business fable. So it is a story. It is a conversation between a client and a coach. And the conversation is based on my experiences being coached. I've always had coaches. I've always been very encouraged by the coaching conversation. And I don't like to go it alone when it comes to, facing my life, my career. I like to win, and I like to have people in my corner that can help me to do so. So coaching's been an important part of my personal development, but also as a business coach, I've seen and experienced some things that I wanted to share in the book. So am I the client or the coach? Yes, I'm both. And it's interesting for me, and I don't know if you've ever written a business fable or I mean, it's because it's a fiction, but it's actually the most authentic thing that I've ever written.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, inside this construct, right? It gave me the freedom to take these characters on a journey that was based in fact, that was based in experience, but it gave me the ability to kind of sort of
Like a puppeteer.
Like a puppeteer, you know what I mean? To put people in the situations. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely with you. But for my viewers and listeners, Chris, give me one or two examples of what were the key takeaways from the perspective of the coach and from the perspective of the coachee.
One of the key perspectives from the coach that he shares is a message that I find to be the most motivational and inspiring message that I've heard in the last decade. And it's motivational and inspiring, not because it's based on some motivational juju or magic or something like that, but it's based on science. And inside the story, in the course of the conversation, the coach comes to share an understanding with the client about how we as human beings are wired for change. And it is based on a book by the name of Live Wired, which is written by a guy named David Eagleman. And that's where the conversation is sparked from this book. But Eagleman shares an example, asking people to imagine a Komodo dragon, kind of an unusual beast. It's the largest lizard on, right? You know what I'm talking about. It's a gigantic lizard. And he says, imagine a Komodo dragon from 30,000 years ago. Okay. Compare that to a Komodo dragon from today. Basically, they are the same creature. Correct. The same instincts exist. They eat, they sleep, they procreate. Their lives and their character they're the same. But consider the fact that for human beings, you and I, we enjoy an IQ that is substantially higher than our forebears. People from 100 years ago do not possess the same IQ level that you and I do, which is not to say that you and I are geniuses. I'd like to think we're bright guys, but I'm not saying that. You know what I mean? This is not a superhero story. It's a story of all of us that as a people, we are evolving in ways that the members of the animal kingdom do not. We are more than our instincts, and we are wired, or as the book says, live wired, to adapt to our circumstances. And so what the coach finds and shares inside this message is the fact that while so many people are resistant to change, they look at change as something detrimental or something to be avoided. The fact of the matter is that adaptability, our ability to respond to change, is built into the system. It's not motivational. It's science. It's DNA. And inside you and me and everyone listening and watching today is that same spark of innovation, that same DNA that allows us to adapt to change. And does this make sense? Because this I think was the major discovery for the coach that he shared, was that when we find a way to zoom out and look at, and again, this is zooming out. It's looking at humanity as a whole. It's looking at the entire animal kingdom and seeing our place within it. What we see is ourselves as human beings, not just human doings. And we see that inside of us, just like we have 5 fingers on a hand, we have inside our DNA the ability, the capability to adapt, and to adapt in amazing ways, and in ways that don't require a heavy lift or strain or sweat or grit. It's simply part of who we are. And from this place, that for the coach was probably the most inspiring thing that he could share, because it's not a matter of faith or belief, it's a matter of fact. And the experience of looking at the science helps us to understand a little bit more about the physics and engineering of how we work as human beings.
Very, very interesting.
Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. And, you know, in this story also that you talk about, you say that the coach loses his father. Is that a story about something which is personal to you? And, you know, if yes, then what have been some of your learnings?
Well, yes, it is a personal story.
Sorry about that.
The story that the coach shares is a verbatim recount of what I experienced when I lost my father to COVID. And it was in the early days of the pandemic, before vaccines, before mask mandates and all that kind of stuff. And he tested positive on a Monday.
Oh, no.
By Friday, he was gone.
Wow.
So, yeah. So as you can imagine, there was a sharp pain and pang of grief, of dealing with the unexpected and this loss. And a man who, he was 77 at the time, he was the picture of health. But when COVID comes calling, it can be a cruel visitor, as you know. So, and I experienced that firsthand.
And I can understand exactly what you say, because I went through a very, very bad COVID
you did?
struggle, and I was in hospital for 9 days, but that's some other time. I was lucky to come out of it. But tell me, how did you cope? And based on all your amazing learnings, how did you cope with this incredible amount of sorrow, which you bring out in your book?
Well, from this very, very difficult place, as you can imagine, was really where Easier was born. It was my pursuit of, is there an easier way to deal with grief? Because here's the thing, I would find myself, I would be sitting in traffic in my car and just start weeping. Just, you know, and I'm like, get it together, pull it together. And I, you know, I experienced, I was ashamed. I mean, I was grieving. I was sad. I mean, I went through every possible human emotion that you can imagine. And from this place, and I don't know where the thought came from, but I was able to make a shift from how can I get through this to what can I get from this? And when I made that transition to what can I get from this incredibly difficult situation, it gave me a sense of agency. I don't want to say control, because grief is not something that you control. It is, and it is not something that ever goes away.
Amazing.
But what I came to realize was that what I could get from this was an opportunity to see things in a new way, to see my father's memory as a blessing, not a curse, to see that if I were going to stop my tears, I would have to stop my love for my father. He wasn't just my father, he was my friend. We were very close. There was no way, there is still no way that I would ever do anything to shut off that love, right? You cannot turn that off.
Absolutely. And that's such a powerful story, and thank you for sharing it so candidly on my program. Thank you. Moving on now, Chris, you know, you also say that, you know, you also talk about the opportunity to pivot from how do I get through this to what can I get from this? For my viewers and listeners, help me understand the difference between these two phrases and maybe give me an example.
When we're looking at coping, which is how am I going to get through this, which so many of us are trying to find ways to cope. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally understandable. But when we are trying to cope, we are facing the world and our circumstances as a victim. And when we are in the victim role, we don't have an opportunity for agency. We don't have an opportunity to see that inside of very difficult circumstances. There's one thing that always exists, and that is hope. And I'm not trying to pass out sunshine and peppermints here.
Yeah.
That is, consider it. Inside every situation, hope is always a possibility. We say, no, all hope is lost. False. We just don't know where to look for it, or we're unwilling to try. And so can we see that hope exists? Can we see that easier exists? Maybe we aren't able to step into an easier way, but can we at least agree? I mean, for example, in this conversation, how many possibilities exist of things for us to talk about? If you think about it, even for a moment, you go, well, it's infinite.
Yeah.
And so why is it that if in this conversation we can easily see that infinite possibilities exist, why is it that when life gets tough and difficult, and you know, and life starts to, this is me having life close in on me, right? How do we remember that we can zoom out? How do we remember that we don't have to be the victim of our circumstances, and that even when our circumstances don't change, we still can. We can change the way we choose to show up. We can change the way that we react. And that, my friend, is the perspective that creates change from how am I going to get through this? How am I going to cope to what can I get from this? And people can ask themselves a very simple question. And if you can, in a way that's gentle and kind, but in a difficult situation, see if you can ask yourself, what's good about this? Just as a means of accessing new possibilities, what's good about this? Because even in the midst of incredible difficulty, and I've had some tough times, I'm sure you have too.
Sure, yes.
Easier always exists.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. Great response. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was about innovation and empathy. How does one access innovation and empathy for yourself and others, irrespective or regardless of the circumstances that you find yourself in?
Well, let me take innovation first. Innovation is really a call for creativity. And the way that you access innovation, there's a number of different ways. There's not, many paths to the same destination. But to me, the path to innovation starts with, what is it that you want to create for yourself? If you think about it, we are all put here on this earth as creators. We create relationships, we create businesses, we create opportunities, we create challenges and problems for ourselves. I mean, we are creating things all the time. And so accessing innovation is really stepping into the question, what is it that you want to create for yourself? And empathy, right? That was the second part of the question. How do you access empathy? Really comes from remembering this phrase that you will never regret being kind. So finding some kindness for yourself in your journey, in your pursuit, in the challenges that you are facing, because we have to give to ourselves what we wish to give to others. And so finding some of that kindness for yourself and the ability to stop beating yourself up, because we think putting pressure on ourselves, that's going to, right? It's going to sharpen us. It's going to, it's that grit. Let me tell you, nobody works well with a gun to their head. Nobody works well under pressure. If you think of the top performers in business, in sports, political leaders that you admire, what those people possess is the ability in difficult circumstances to remain relaxed and focused. And that starts with a kindness and an empathy for yourself so that you can share that same empathy with others.
Fascinating. So let me now move to another set of questions on coaching. And my next question to you, Chris, is that how has your own background from the corporate world, the Fortune 100 companies, all the work that you've been doing, how has all that experience supported your own coaching philosophy, your style, and your values?
Well, I've seen what doesn't work firsthand. Just to say, I've I've been in the meetings that go nowhere. I've been part of a corporate culture that is toxic, that is not inclusive. I've been the victim of poor leadership choices. And in my entrepreneurial journey, much like you, I've said, never again. What can I do to create the change? How can I be the change that I want to see? How can I be that catalyst for the things that did not happen in my career so that other people don't have to experience the same difficulty, the same challenges, so that they can find a way through their experiences vicariously without having to be punished by the slings and arrows of life and outrageous fortune? How can I be that catalyst? So that really has been what has motivated me, and to expand my coaching and my conversations and the folks that I have. And working with people all over the world has been incredibly powerful for me. I think of my client from Rajasthan in the northwest of India.
Fantastic. Wonderful.
That experience has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. I have time for two more questions. My next question to you is that how have you been shaped by some of the people in your life, and how have they influenced you as a coach?
One of the greatest influences in my life and in my coaching practice came from my coach, and she let me know in no uncertain terms a few things. I'll share with you quickly. But first of all, you don't have to go it alone.
Yeah.
And this has been something that has been very powerful to me. And obviously in the coaching conversation, you come into it so that you don't have to face things alone. And when you realize that you have someone who is focused on your success, everything gets easier. So that's been one thing that has been a huge influence. The other thing that has made a huge difference, and this is going to sound counterintuitive. It's probably going to sound crazy, but two words that have been shared with me, and I share it with my clients whenever I can. My clients come in, they're frustrated, they're overworked, they're overwhelmed, they're burnt out, and I share these two words with them, and here they are: slow down. We have to slow down to go fast. We have to find, almost like a race car driver, when you're going 235 miles per hour, the way that you go at such speed is that you must be, and this is counterintuitive, but you must be in neutral. You must be at a place where your mind is open, where you are in what some call flow, that place of relaxation and focus. And when we slow down, we get closer to finding it. We slow down to go fast.
Amazing. And my last question to you, Chris, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation.
Yes.
Based on your own amazing journey and all your learnings, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away?
The first lesson is the most powerful tool in business is always the conversation. And we live our lives tweeting and talking with our thumbs, but there's no substitute for this kind of dialogue, whether it's face-to-face or face-to-screen.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you are in the middle of a difficult circumstance, if you can, zoom out. Look for additional perspectives. If it looks like there's only one way to win, what is it that you're missing in terms of possibilities? And finally, the third thing that I would share is that planning is very, very valuable, but life is not scripted. Life happens moment to moment. And when we remember, we remember that we are resourceful. And I'm not talking about just you and I. I'm talking about everyone on this planet. There is a resourcefulness that is built into us. And when we are tied to our plans and beating ourselves up over what's not going right, or being arrogant because things are going right, we're missing an opportunity to be in the moment, to be ourselves, and to tap into that humanity that is truly our superpower. It's a superpower that AI and technology cannot conquer. It is our ability to step into the moment, step into new resources, and step into the innovation, empathy, and creativity that we've been talking about during this conversation.
Fascinating. And on that note, Chris, and your 3 wonderful lessons, conversation is very, very critical. When you do face a difficult time, zoom out and look for new perspectives. And third one you said is planning is valuable, and life happens. Things can keep happening to us anytime. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for sharing with me about your book, Easier. And I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out your book on Amazon and wherever else they are, on whichever bookstores. Thank you for talking to me about and sharing with me in so much detail and depth story of your father and your experiences with him. I was very, very close to my father, and I've always said my father was my closest friend. Thank you also for speaking to me about coaching and all the wonderful lessons that you've given to us. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.